All right, friends, I'm going to try to get through this as fast as I can. But today I wanted to talk about the Michigan football cheating scandal. This is what they're doing that nobody else is doing. At least no one has evidence of anybody else doing it. So let's start with a history lesson.
Well, I'm here before you, being as enthusiastic and excited as I ever am, always am. Even more. To have at it, to win the championship, to win the beat Ohio, your hometown there. Our rivals, Michigan State. Everybody, that's what we want to do, and we're going to do it or die trying. It's like.
We're going to do it. We're going to win or die trying, as it says there in the video.
Well, I'm here before.
Go to the next slide. So, tale of before and after. What happened before he made that statement and what's happened since. So before, never beat Ohio State, never won a Big Ten championship. On the COVID year of 2020, terrible record, right? Overall, 2-4. What happened since? Well, Big Ten championships, college football playoff appearances, beat Ohio State. Is it a coincidence? Is it not a coincidence? I don't know. So how do we first start hearing about this? Well, it was Thursday, October 19th, and it was on Yahoo Sports, Ross Dellinger and Sam Wetzel. Teams are normally provided extensive video footage to scout opponents. At issue, according to sources, is whether Michigan used unnamed individuals to attend games with both scheduled opponents and possible college football playoff opponents in an effort to gather information on the signs they use to call both offensive and defensive plays. Sign stealing is not technically prohibited and has long been a colorful history of a part of the game. Scouting opponents in person has been prohibited since 1994. Whether the NCAA believes Michigan was using staffers or others who may be loyal to the program is unknown. So too is whether information was detailed via video or some other means, or if coach Jim Harbaugh is involved. Continue the next day or the same day with another story on ESPN with our friend here. I forget his name, but it'll come to me eventually. So Michigan, Michigan football coach says he does not have any knowledge or information regarding the University of Michigan football program illegally stealing signals, nor has he directed any staff member or others to participate in off-campus scouting assignments. Harbaugh said he and his staff would fully cooperate with the investigation and that he doesn't condone or tolerate anyone doing anything illegal or against NCAA rules. The next day, details emerged from our friend Ross Dellinger again. So everything was kind of vague. Now we got some details. All right. So it says at various points, Connor Stalions would make a signal, point to his shoulder, gesture to the ground, tap his head. He was in constant communication with the full-time assistants around him, whispering to them as opposing offenses broke the huddle. He spearheads the operation, one Big Ten school told Yahoo Sports in an interview Thursday. He wants this. So this person who talked to this Ross Dellinger guy said that he went up to Stalions and told him that we know what kind of SHIT you're doing, and it's effed up. Multiple Big Ten staff members identified Stalions as Michigan's sign-stealing guru after the school was ensnared Thursday in an NCAA investigation. ESPN reported late Thursday night that the NCAA's investigation into Michigan sign-stealing is focused on Stalions, who joined the staff in spring of 2022 as a recruiting analyst. Stalions has subsequently been suspended by Michigan with pay. Since his name emerged, Stalions has scrubbed his social media. He deleted his Instagram and Twitter accounts. If he wasn't doing anything wrong, then why would he do these things? But well before the NCAA got involved, those within the league knew of Stalions and his sign-stealing expertise. We were told to be careful because they had a guy who could pick plays. Notice how he didn't say steal plays. He said pick plays. Says one Big Ten coach, it is too late in the week to change our signals, but another staff did tell us about it. So everyone in the Big Ten knows about this guy. This is like an open, It's not a secret. All the coaches are talking about it. All the coaches know about it. That they're doing something extra. They're doing something more. They're used to sign stealing. They're used to people looking at their signs. They're used to people trying to figure out what their signs are. That's why they go through elaborate schemes to figure this out, or to make sure that they don't figure it out on a game day basis. But they're doing something extra. They're doing something more. They're doing something different. Either way, this is a months-long situation that dates back to at least last season. News of the sign stealing spread enough that multiple Michigan opponents this season dropped its signaling and used wristbands for much of the offensive play calling during the game against the Wolverines. Ohio State staff members knew of the issue ahead of their game against the Wolverines last season. The staff changed things up ahead of the game to combat the signaling issue. One support member told Yahoo. Didn't help them, of course, but we heard that he had a guy who picked plays pretty good and had all of information from not your typical ways of getting signals. We get into the game, and it's the second quarter. I see him across the field, and he's checking his 11x17 sheet. One Big Ten school coach said Michigan used backdoor methods to obtain signage information, which means like not the typical way, right? Not the way that you would do it on a game day. Word had spread enough that one Big Ten school feared Michigan staff members were in attendance of one of the games there earlier in the season capturing signals. Word had spread enough that one Big Ten school feared Michigan staff members were in attendance at one of their games earlier in the season capturing signals. That would be the backdoor way, friends. A few weeks later, the game against Wolverines, the same team called, mostly using wristbands. However, some plays were signaled in on those plays. So they're using wristbands, but sometimes they signal in. The second it will signal in, staff member spotted Stalions either signaling into the game or gesturing to another assistant. So Stalions isn't just, he knows more than the typical team knows, and the Big Ten coaches know it. As soon as we flash something, he knew it right away. You go through the film and you start seeing a trend of certain coverages versus run and pass. They're getting the best looks you can get into. Yeah, that's the whole point of sign stealing, so that you can get into the best looks that you're getting into. Hours later, Michigan suspended Stalions. Shocker. As the days went on, rumors never-endingly swirled, but I took this one seriously. The reason I took it seriously because they're talking about John U. Bacon. John U. Bacon isn't just a regular Joe. John U. Bacon is what's known as a Michigan historian. As you can see, he has many best-selling books, and he has 4 of them right here, all about Michigan football, including one at the top there that has Jim Harbaugh in it. So John U. Bacon says, as you can see down here, Morning Juice, which is a radio show somewhere, he came on the show as the guest, and he said in the show that John U. talked about Jim Harbaugh's frosty relationship with his AD, which is an athletic director, praised Harbaugh for restoring Michigan football to its former greatness, and gave thoughts on how that stuff isn't really important. So, wow. So this guy obviously listened to the radio show. John, who is plugged in as anyone in Ann Arbor, which is where the University of Michigan is saying it is actually a University of Michigan alum named Jim Stapleton who is leaking all the information about Harbaugh. Stapleton works for the NCAA Infractions Committee and hates Harbaugh. More. So Jim Stapleton, more information on him. He's the Infractions Committee member. He's believed to be the whistleblower who tipped off the NCAA about the Michigan sign stealing scandal. And he has allowed individual schools to gather additional evidence and submit it to the NCAA. Rick Neuheisel, I guess, had a show today on College Football XM, and he's saying that it's not an open secret about how much Michigan AD Ward Manuel hates Harbaugh. Maybe he means it's an open secret, meaning it's not a secret. They're saying the president and the AD were on different pages when it comes to Harbaugh. Why hasn't Harbaugh signed a long-term contract? Very true. So yesterday, days later after the previous reports, the Washington Post got involved. Says the NCAA probe began after firm obtained evidence from Michigan computers. So it says the sign stealing investigation threatening to disrupt Michigan's football season began after an outside investigative firm approached the NCAA with documents and videos. The firm said it had obtained from computer drives maintained and accessed, easier for me to say, by multiple Michigan coaches. According to two people familiar with the matter, evidence suggests that the scandal's impact could broaden beyond suspension of one level assistant. The outside firm's investigation, these people said, and involved interviews with people knowledgeable about Michigan football scouting operation. Who might that be? Maybe people in the Michigan football scouting operations department, as well as reviewing documents and videos related to sign stealing efforts. So whoever they're talking to knows a lot. So maybe this is truly an inside job on the fact of Ward Manuel, the AD of Michigan, and the Michigan alum who works for the NCAA that hates Harbaugh. Sounds like it to me. I could be wrong, but there you go. So in the end, what is all of this about? So here's an article about technology in college football and the evolution of video and film study from 2015. Basically, long story short, it talks about a guy who would literally, as you see in the picture here, find a place to go and hand a VHS or a beta tape to another coach, and they would just swap right there in person, each other's game film, and they would watch each other's game film, and that's just kind of like a gentleman's agreement on what we would do to, hey, let's see what your quarterback looks like. Let's see how good your defensive line is. Let's see how big your offensive line is, at least as well as we can tell from film. Hey, look at this guy out there. He's really fast. Hey, let's look at what kind of alignments they get in. Hey, do they run a spread? Do they run three running backs in the backfield or somewhere in between, right? So obviously that became obsolete, and then everything became digital, and now the same thing happens just digitally, all right? So people still trade film, it's just digitally, not in person anymore, right? So as I alluded to, once you get the film, what do? You study the All-22. So that film that's traded digitally is an All-22 film. As you can see, they get two angles. They get the end zone angle and they get the sideline view. What's missing? Signal callers. Interesting. I don't see any signal callers. I see some feet over there, but that's about it. Sorry, just went off on a tangent there. So what are you looking for? Like I said, here's an article about how to properly analyze your opponent's game film, right? You're taking notes, you're studying tendencies, you're studying personnel, you're studying how you match up against them. On the arrows down there at the bottom middle, it says, watching film helps give you an edge on your opponents. Study all the details you feel can allow you to play fast and put your team in the best position to win. In the end, that's what you're doing. And that's all you're doing. You're not doing anything more than that. Hey, look at that film. You can't see any signal callers there either. Crazy. But sign stealing is illegal, right? Well, I put a typo there. I meant to say, but sign stealing isn't, I can read. Sorry, I'm struggling. Trying to get through this fast, but just messing myself up. Sign stealing is legal, right? Yes, during the game it is, hence the elaborate setup that Michigan, Oregon has got going on here, but not, quote, in-person advanced scouting. So Michigan's sign stealing operation is a college football scandal to savor, the Washington Post put out yesterday. And Washington Post is great at information that is misinformation and that is disinformation. So they're just following what they always follow, more disinformation. This article is saying sign stealing happens among players in live game action. It happens across the sideline between coaching staffs during games. And yes, it happens during game planning when opposing teams review game tape. Schools send each other their game footage as a sort of forced courtesy. One time I bumped into a staffer in an elevator during a game, and he explained he was rushing from the press box to the sideline after charting the opposing team's signs for a quarter. Been stealing signals was his actual quote. Then he asked how my kids were doing. Despite the ubiquity of practice, or maybe because of it, sign stealing in football doesn't create the kind of advantage it does in a sport such as baseball, as Colorado coach Deion Sanders explains this week. When he told reporters you could have someone's whole game plan, they could mail it to you. You still got to stop it. Sanders might be the most over the law. So the entire crime in question is commonplace, and the cops sent to punish it were entirely Keystone. So why is this a big deal? Why do they have so many in the industry, including myself, met this particular NCAA transgression with such mirth? Because it's Michigan. So basically what this guy is saying is everybody's making a big deal out of this. Michigan isn't doing anything wrong. Michigan isn't cheating. Everybody cheats. Everybody's doing the same thing. What the reason everybody's after Michigan is because Michigan, and notice how he says John U. Bacon here. Everybody knows John U. Bacon. Everybody should take him seriously. He's a serious man. Oh, Michigan pretends to have the academics of an Ivy League school, but pretends to be a football powerhouse that can beat the Alabamas. Well, that's true. They do. I know lots of people who went to Michigan, and they are hoity-toity when it comes to the academics at Michigan, how much better they are than everybody else in that way. Which I don't know. I never been there. If they were an Ivy League school, they'd probably be in the Ivy League, but whatever. But as this article alluded to, talking about Deion Sanders, this is what he said. But as Tim May cleared up, sign stealing is not the question here. Question is breaking rule which prohibits live scouting with cell phone cams or regular cams, no less. To obtain signs illegally, allegedly, in systematic way that allegedly involves surrogates, that's the cheating part. You can't go somewhere else and you can't film their signs at another game. So if I wanted to do a scheme like this, here's how I would do it, and here's how they're telling us that they did it. So this is from the Pete Thamel, Mark Schlabach. The NCAA is expected to receive video evidence this week of illegal technology used in scouting tied to tickets purchased by Stallions, according to the sources. An opposing Big Ten school looked up surveillance video from a game. So all these stadiums have cameras inside. They need to look at what's happening in the stands at all times. There's security that needs to take place. They do this for insurance reasons. They make sure that, if an accident happens, somebody claims an accident happened. Hey, I fell down the stands. Hey, I have it on video, whether, to back it up, whether you actually did it or not. They have all this information. I worked for the Broncos for 13 years. Pat Bowlen signed my checks. I worked at that stadium. I know it back and forth, up and down, left and right, as well as anybody. So I know exactly how this works. They're trying to look up in-game surveillance video from a game earlier this year, and sources said the person in the seat of the ticket purchased by Stallions held up his smartphone and appeared to film the home team's sideline the entire game. So that's offensive signals and defensive signals. So he's filming this guy right here, all game, every game. So once you get that film, what are you going to do with it? What makes this such a big deal? Well, here you go. You get 2 TVs, computer monitors, whatever you want to call them. You put your cell phone footage on one TV. You put your all 22 on the other. You play the signals for the first play. You write down all those signals. You play the first play of the game, and then you write down what every player does. And you do that over and over and over and over again for the entire game or multiple games. There's a report out that they had tickets for 8 Ohio State games. You do that for 8 games, you can get a great idea, a great picture of what's happening. You start to see patterns. You see when they hold up 2 fists like the guys doing there for Oregon. For example, maybe they run both outside receivers, run go routes. Who knows? You just do that over and over again until you've matched every signal with everything that the players do on the field. And then their language. Signs that they're putting out to the players is sign language. They also speak a language. So that's the difference between the in-game stuff. With the in-game stuff, you have to learn their language right then and there on the fly. Imagine if you don't know a lick of Spanish, you go to Mexico City and somehow you can pick up every single word and what every single word means just being there. Well, that's what most people are doing when they're trying to steal signs on a game day. But with this, you're coming in already knowing the language. What's the difference between somebody who already knows Spanish and goes to Mexico City and someone who doesn't know a lick of Spanish and tries to learn it right then and there? The difference is night and day. So obviously, now they know your language. You know exactly what their players know. You know exactly what they're signaling. Just in case I forget, you can come up with something like this. So as you can see, that dude there to the left with the facial hair is Mr. Stalions. And what Mr. Stalions has in his hand is what you see there in the center. And somebody took out that picture and they showed it to some Ohio State coaches. And they asked the Ohio State coaches if these are their signals and if they correlate with what this sheet says. And they said yes. Some people are saying, no, those are Michigan signals. No, they're not Michigan signals. They're Ohio State signals. And no, Michigan and Ohio State don't have the same signals because they don't speak the same language. They run two different offices. It's completely different. So there you go to all my friends who like to delve into those silly details that don't matter. So once you get to the game, how is it different? Well, you see in this picture here, you see Mr. Stalions, and you see some Michigan players. Interesting. Looking right at the Ohio State sideline because the Ohio State team is standing here and they are trying to get the signals for the play. They want to run. Here we go. Who's looking? The Ohio State team gets it. Oh, he gets it even faster than Ohio State players. He's signaling up, up, up. That means pass, pass, pass. And the players are signaling up, 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 pass, pass, pass. Even faster than the quarterback. Imagine going to Mexico and you can speak Spanish before the native speakers. Crazy, huh? Put a little slide, please, friends. Here we go. So what's the big deal? Well, let's put 2 and 2 together. And guess what? We're going to do that in another video. We'll see y'all here in a minute. Peace out, friends.